Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be introducing Rachel Yvonne from Waukegan, Illinois, and she is a person that you should know. Rachel is a singer, songwriter, producer, and a poet, and she transcends genre. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. She is an ambitious woman of God, seeking to empower others through lyrical substance in song and spoken word. Rachel believes music has the ability to change the way you think, feel, and perceive the world. Her music is a personal reflection of her life experiences. Rachel desires to share her wisdom with others through her artistry with the intention to inspire, uplift, and transform lives, all for the glory of God. Greetings, Rachel.
Hello.
We're very happy that you've taken time from your busy schedule to be with us on Community Forum to let Lake County know who you are. If you have not been known around the world, you will be after this program because we're online, drbrooks.tv, and they could watch you in Australia and England and all over because we're online. But first of all, I'd like for you to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Well, I went to school at DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay.
And I obtained my bachelor's degree in psychology and human development. So right now, currently, I am a primary caregiver to infants. I work at a child care facility affiliated with a hospital. And my job there is basically to help the infants reach their developmental milestones and, just engage in families. And so it's an awesome job. However, I do feel that I was called to do music. I've always had an interest in music. And so that is why we are here today.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your musical career.
Okay. In 2015, I released my first single. It was titled Concrete.
Okay.
And that was produced by Trinell Duffy of Duffy Made Music.
Yeah.
And basically that song was written out of pain that I had experienced, a heartbreak, but it also led me closer to Christ. And so that was my first single. It was #1 on Amazon in the Neo Soul digital download category. And then my second single was Fragile, and that was incorporated in a movie titled Eyes from Eden, and that released in 2016 by filmmaker Cornell Ford.
Yes.
And he's a local filmmaker here in Lake County. He has See It, Be It Films. And so he approached me and my father, who is also my manager, William Hutchison, and he wanted to use the song in the film. So then from there, I created an album, 14 tracks, released in 2017, and the rest is history.
Now, how much training did you receive in music?
So my mother is a singer. Everyone on my mom's side sings. They're known as the Simmons family. They sang at many different churches. I want to say in like the late 80s or so, but they were very well known. My uncle plays the piano. His name is Sylvester Simmons. And we would just all sit around and sing and worship in the basement of our home. And that's how I learned about gospel, the genre of gospel and harmonies, and I was vocally trained by my uncle as well. And then my father, he plays bass, William Hutchison, so he exposed me to different genres growing up, from jazz to R&B, just every single style of music that's out there. I've heard it and I internalized it, and it inspired me to create my own sound as well.
And you have, you're very inspirational, and you don't mind sharing your wisdom with others, then, right?
Yes, correct. I love sharing with others. Any chance that I get, I feel that I am a living testimony of the power of Jesus Christ. And his word says that we overcome by the word of our testimony, by the blood of the Lamb. And so it is my job to share my testimony with others in hopes to inspire them as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us about your testimony.
Yes, so as I briefly stated before, I was in a relationship with a young man who I consider to be my best friend. Mm-hmm. We were friends for 5 years, but we dated briefly in that he was my first. I gave myself to him. I backslid from the Lord. And what I learned from that is that I cannot make an idol out of a person. I cannot compromise my values in order to appease someone else. And so I learned what true love is when I totally submitted to Christ. I knew that the life that I was living was not what God had called for me as a young woman. And so I was in my college dorm room when I was a junior, and I was so depressed. I had a bottle of allergy pills, that's all I could find. But I wanted to overdose. I didn't want to live anymore. And it wasn't just because of the relationship. There were other things that the enemy was trying to bring from my past. I was molested at 4 years old. I've been through divorce. My parents divorced, and I was a product of that. And so it was traumatizing as a child to grow up and not really know what love was. I had a distorted view of love until I came to Christ. In that moment of when I was going to take my life, I heard him say, "Why take away a life that I died to give you?" How selfish would that be? When I died to give you a life and you want to take it away, it's a free gift, you know? And so I heard in my spirit, it's a song that says, "We have overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony." And so I said, you know what, I'm an overcomer. And it's by my testimony that I will overcome this phase. It's just a wilderness season, but I will get to my promised land. And so from that pain, I produced an album talking about all that I had been through. Spoken word talks about it. Songs that I have on there touch on it. So that's basically my testimony.
Actually, you were born to excel, but you didn't know that at that time, but you found out that
Yes.
God had you here for a
Purpose. That's right.
And your purpose is uplifting others.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, you can't inspire someone if you haven't been through anything. You know, you won't have any credibility with a person if you can't come to them, relating to them where they are. Even Jesus spoke to the people and met them where they were. He spoke to them in parables. You know, he didn't quote religious scripture to them. He met them where they were. And so that's my purpose on this earth, is to meet people right where they are, not to point a hand in judgment, but extend a hand in helping them overcome.
You know, on your epitaph says date of birth dash date of death, right? But it's what you do between the dash what counts as far as Christ is concerned, right?
Yes, amen. Amen, that's true. Because we're all here on borrowed time. And so what you do in this life determines where you go in the next. And I want to stand empty before God, that I used all my gifts and all my talents to glorify him and to reach others while I was on this earth, so that I can stand before him and he can say, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant, which whom I am well pleased." I want to be able to hear that. I don't want to be full of myself standing in front of him. I want to be empty of all my gifts that he gave me.
Well, you're well trained in, because you have to empty yourself.
That's right.
And to please God.
Amen.
You know.
That's true.
This is fantastic. Who are some of your musical influences?
Well, as
I know you mentioned your father as one.
Yes, definitely my parents. But aside from family, I really, really loved Whitney Houston. I just loved how she could control the audience, her vocal control, everything about her. I just love Whitney. Also, Mary Mary, they're a gospel Christian group. You know, I love them as well. Jill Scott, I listened to her growing up. She gave me kind of like that neo-soul inspiration for my sound in music. So those are some, to name a few.
Well, how did you learn how to produce your music?
Well, that was a journey. I always wanted to produce. I've always been around it. I worked with Maurice Houston, the late Maurice Houston. He was my dad's best friend. He was like an uncle to me. And he gave me my first production deal. And he said, I'm going to produce you. Just come to me with the written material and I will sit down and help you produce. So at the time, I didn't know that I was producing. He would ask me, okay, Rachel, what do you want to hear in your song? And I would tell him, okay, I want to hear some acoustic guitar. I want the bass line to go this way. And I want the piano to play this chord. And he would say, Rachel, you do know you're producing right now. And I was like, really? I had no idea. You know, I thought I was just telling him what I wanted to hear, but he said, no, you're co-producing, you're laboring with me. You may not be actually playing the keys, but you are producing. So I was like, okay, so that gave me a stamp of approval, like I'm a producer now. And so from there, I worked with Trinell Duffy. He produced Concrete. And I would tell him as well what I wanted to hear in that song. And so it came to a point where I just got tired of having to try to wait on others to do for me what I felt I could do myself. I'm able-bodied. God has given me the wisdom. And so I said, well, Lord, I want to produce myself. How do I go about this? And so I started doing research online, looking at YouTube videos. YouTube really is the best place. If you're trying to learn something, YouTube will teach you everything you need to know. And so I found out about this software, and I told my dad, I said, we need to find this software because I think I can do this. And he believed in me, of course, and we both pitched in financially to buy everything that we needed. And from there, I just started playing around with the software. And that's how I learned how to produce, just hearing it in my head and finding it on the keyboard and pulling up all these different sounds to make a full composition.
And I'd like for you to discuss your first album you have now.
Yes.
Love Notes.
Yes.
Tell us about Love Notes.
So Love Notes, like I briefly stated, was birthed out of my pain. And so I do have a spoken word piece talking about my testimony in detail. But Love Notes is about loving God, loving yourself, and loving others. And each song is essentially a love note to the listener. And so I have songs on there addressing topics of rejection, self-worth, what true love is, agape love, unconditional sacrificial love, and how we should be forgiving of others as well because Christ forgave us. So those are a lot of the topics that I touch on, and I write from my personal experiences because I feel it'll give me more credibility with my listeners. It's not like I'm just pulling scriptures and throwing them at you, but I'm giving you reasons as to why I believe this way and how it's helped me grow in my walk with God as well.
I think our listening audience would be interested in finding out how long did it take you to produce the album?
Surprisingly, it only took 6 months.
Oh.
It only took 6 months because I already had most of the material written. I've been songwriting since I was about 9 years old. It wasn't until I got older that I realized I had a lot more to talk about. And so some of the songs were already written, and I just kind of tweaked it here and there and made it fit where I was in my life at that time, which was why the process was actually easy because I already had these songs written. And I went through the process of starting my own publishing company, Rachel Yvonne Music, through BMI, so that I can collect all of my royalties, mechanical royalties online. Every time the song is played, I get paid. And I just did music business as well, and I did my research. And so that's how Love Notes was birthed. It was released on my birthday last year, and it was like my personal gift to myself and to others.
Well, how would you describe your specific sound as it relates to genre? And the musicians that are watching the program can identify with genre.
Yes, yes. There are many different genres. And gospel is considered in the community to a lot of people as a genre. However, gospel to me is the message of the good news of Jesus Christ. And so what I try not to do is confine God into a box, a specific sound that it has to have an organ and, you know, the traditional sound. I believe that the message of the gospel transcends genre, meaning that it can be accompanied by an R&B beat or a jazz beat, whoever it needs to reach. As long as the message is unfiltered truth, then I believe that it doesn't matter, because everything good comes from God anyway. He created everything. And so it's the enemy who tries to take what God has created and dilute it. But when we stay true to what God has called for us to do, which is to spread his message, it doesn't matter how it sounds, as long as the message is still the same. And that's that Jesus died, he rose again, and he is Lord.
Fantastic, fantastic. What are some of your musical accomplishments so far, in addition to Love Notes?
So Love Notes was actually ranked number 2 its week of release in the Amazon Contemporary R&B section, which I thought was awesome, because it's going to reach an audience that's not typical, gospel. They wouldn't know what gospel is, and so they see R&B, they're like, oh, okay, and they listen to it, and they're like, this is different. You know, the message is like about God. So, but the music, it's what draws them in. So that was an accomplishment for me in having it be ranked number 2 in that category. And as I stated before, with Concrete and Fragile, just for those songs to do what they did, being in a movie and being ranked number 1 in Neo Soul, those are accomplishments for me. But the greatest accomplishment, honestly, is just being able to share my gift. And
well, Waukegan can be really proud of you, and I wonder how many. I'm a community forum is happy to be able to share your testimony with the world, really. Because you truly have a real testimony to give. What do you do in leisure time activities? Do you have any leisure time activities?
Yes, well, music. That's really that's really what I love music, but I also like to work out. I go to the gym quite often, and I like to read my word. Like, I really just like to study God's word and just spend time with him. Yeah, and I have friends that I hang out with as well. I like bowling and shopping, you know, like any female, we love to shop, so.
You know, where there's no vision, people perish, right?
That's right.
And you had a vision, you know, at the early age, and you have capitalized on it.
Yeah, you have to have a vision, or else you won't know where you're going. And the Word of God says, write the vision and make it plain. So what I usually do is I write down all of my goals for the upcoming year. So that way I have a sense of direction of what I'm doing, and I'm not just standing idly and watching other people go by and pursuing their goals and I'm doing nothing. So I write things down, and one by one I take my time and I zero in on one goal, and once that's accomplished I move on to the next, so that way I know that I'm being purposeful in my life.
Tell our listening audience the importance of having a personal relationship with God.
That's a great question. Well, that's the thing. It is personal. So you can't go. It's good to be inspired by other people, but you have to want God for yourself. And what I learned is God is someone who you can actually talk to. He's not this distant being in the sky that you don't know what's going. He's literally given you his word so that you can know him personally. And that is important. It's awesome to know that the God who created all things wants a relationship with me. Who am I that you are mindful of me? You know, and so when you really grasp that, he loves you. It's not he wants to condemn you, but he came so that you can have life and have that more abundantly. Then that's what draws you near him. That's that causes you to want to have a relationship with him, because it's love. It's pure love. And I think it's important for everyone to have that relationship, because no one can love you the way that God can. You can't find love in anything or anyone else. It can only be found in him.
It is a song that there is no greater love.
Yes.
Than because in that case, the person wrote that because he gave his only begotten son. He allowed his only begotten son to be born, suffered that for sins, and you mentioned that died on the cross for us.
Yes.
You have been successful, and your criteria, if you want to talk to others, maybe high school students, how would you relate to them by the criteria for success? I know one is a personal relationship with God. That's
Right.
a number one. You
Right.
know, but with you, how did you? What would you recommend as other criteria for success?
Specifically high school students, I would tell them it's okay to be different and that you don't have to follow the crowd.
Okay.
Elevation and success does require separation.
Okay.
It requires isolation. There will be a time where you may lose friends, and that's okay, because what a friend we have, we really do in Jesus.
Right,
and
right.
and he sticks to us closer than a brother. And so when you stay focused on your goals and you have a plan, some people are going to be jealous. I've experienced jealousy. I've experienced people just leaving me for no reason, and it hurt me in the moment. But God was telling me, I can't take them where I'm taking you. Sometimes you're going to have to travel this journey alone. It's a narrow road, but it's okay, because when God is leading you to your appointed destination, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter who comes and who goes, And so my advice to them would just to be stay focused and get rid of all of the distractions.
Tell us about the instruments that you been acquainted with, or that you play and so forth. I know you shared with us your beautiful voice, and maybe I may ask you to share it with us, a cappella voice. But what are the instruments that you?
So piano is basically what I prefer,
Okay.
because with digitally, the way that you can connect the USB, the MIDI keyboard into the program and the software, you can pull up any instrument. So if I wanted to play the violin, I can pull up the violin on the software, and then just find the notes on the keyboard, and I'll play that note and it'll sound like the violin. And so that's how I pull up different instruments, the drums, the hi-hat, things of that nature. So I like the keyboard. That's my personal favorite. Yeah.
This is fantastic. So actually, it's just a gift of God where you have learned how to play different instruments, right?
Yes, it is definitely God, because I didn't know how I was going to do it.
And actually, that's comes from your father too, right? He is.
Yeah, he plays the bass, so I was already trained by ear to hear what the bass should be doing, and so bass lines are really easy for me to come up with.
Okay. Well, what about your ultimate goal then? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I obviously want to be recording and releasing music, but I also would like to start my own clothing line. I want to start my own record label, and I want to write for other artists as well. I want to do music full time. That's really the goal. I love my job now and working with infants, but I know that that's a season, and that God has really called me to do music. So that's what I want to be doing 10 years from now. Yeah.
Would you mind giving us a vocal
Oh, absolutely.
rendition
Yes.
of your choice.
Okay. Well, one of my personal favorites is Amazing Grace, and
Oh, yes.
that's also on my album. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now, Lord knows I'm found. I was blind, but now I see.
Fantastic. I know I can hear them clapping in the audience now, applauding,
Praise God.
This is fantastic. What about, we heard you sing, writing and producing. Tell about your experience in writing.
So I began writing when I was about 9 years old. My cousin and I, we had a singing group called Saved, and we would write songs in the basement, and we would put on imaginary concerts for invisible people.
Okay.
And so I just learned how to write from listening to other artists. I knew, okay, I have to have a verse, a chorus, another verse, maybe a hook or a bridge. So I understood the structure of writing at an early age. And then as I stated, as I lived and gained a little bit more experience just living life, I was able to have more content to discuss and talk about. So with writing, I love writing. My process is very simple. I can write a song in maybe 30 minutes max, just because I think of a topic. I like to think of it as a thesis statement. Think of a topic and, okay, forgiveness, and then what do I want to talk about in the verse? That's like a paragraph to me. And then the chorus, so I just kind of think of it as writing. I've always been a good writer, A and B student in school, so writing has always been natural for me. So writing is, I love it. I love it.
And we think of life as a temporary here, but hell and heaven are permanent. So this is just a temporary journey that we're going through now, and it's and leaning on God, I guess, is the primary focus there to it.
Yes.
And I think this will probably would solve a lot of our youth problems today. We have so many shootings and people just have given up on life, right?
Right.
But I think you went through some experiences, and I may ask you some of the challenging experiences, and you had a myriad, I guess, a wide range of challenging experiences that you've gone through life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it would be music or whatever you want to share with us.
Yeah, just challenges of overcoming the things that I've been through. It can be traumatic for a lot of people. As I stated, the molestation, going through seeing your parents divorced, not really knowing what love is. The enemy can try to make it seem like you can't overcome that, but I'm a testimony that you can. You really can. And it's a choice. You have to choose not to allow the situation to define you, but tell the problem how big your God is. And I serve an awesome, sovereign God. And so it's nothing too hard for him. There's nothing too hard for him. So the challenges that I face have been overcome by my love for God. And that's how I'm able to work through it.
And you have related this so well, though. It's not about us, it's about Jesus, right?
Exactly. And that's my prayer, is always less of me and more of you. So even when I was asked about accomplishments, the greatest accomplishment is knowing him. That's it. You know, we're just vessels that he uses to reach others, but it's never about us. He's at the center of it all.
You mentioned about your father is plays I guess the instrument with the guitar, was it?
Yeah, he plays the bass
The
guitar.
bass guitar. Oh, that sounds familiar. My daughter, oldest daughter, plays bass
yeah,
guitar too,
totally.
and I think he may have mentioned he was influenced by her
Yeah, he did.
in playing the bass. But there's this. So have you ever decided what is your main? You say piano is your basic
Yes.
instrument, but the others you can hear and translate then, right?
Right, correct.
Okay, we mentioned that I mentioned about you're always interested in your ultimate goal. Is it music or is it what you're doing now?
It's music.
Music is your
I already
ultimate.
know that what I'm doing now is temporary. Although I love it, I really do, but I can't see myself doing that for the rest of my life.
Okay.
My purpose and my calling is music, but I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to just do one thing. I want to start a record label. I want to start clothing lines with inspirational quotes and sayings for the youth to wear, and I just have so much in me. I also want to get into acting and do acting roles. So there's a lot of, I just want to be in the entertainment industry and meet different people and make connections and share my testimony with people who may not hear the gospel because they're not close to a church home or close to church, but if someone can cross their paths, such as myself, to share my testimony with them in that industry, then that would be awesome. That's really my goal.
When you mentioned clothing line, I thought about Serena Williams and Venus, and although they are champion tennis players, the clothing line is what they, well, I guess, would retire on because they're not going to play tennis all their lives.
Exactly.
But the clothing line would be
Right.
be forever.
Yeah,
You know?
and you have something to fall back on. You know, even with writing for other artists,
Oh, yeah.
if you songwrite, you're getting paid. Like that's where the money really is, because if you write the song, anytime that it's getting played, you get those royalties because you wrote it. So as a songwriter, I knew it was important to start my own publishing company, so that I could get the royalties that I know I deserve and worked hard for.
Good. You just enlightened me on my grandson is in California and he writes music.
Nice.
And I was wondering why he spent so much time writing music, but you mentioned the royalties that they get from it and so forth, you know. But he's been writing for about 10 years,
Wow.
you know, and loves writing music.
That's awesome.
From traveling from California to Atlanta, you know, and Chicago. He's from Chicago, you know, this type of thing. But so writing, mentioned singing. What about producing? Is that a goal too?
Absolutely. Well, I would like to take piano lessons because, as I stated, I do it by ear.
Yeah.
But I would like to just learn how to get on the piano and just play. You know, just advance in that area. So
You don't be a Beethoven though.
yeah, I want to get to that point where I'm just gone, you know. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. I also wouldn't be opposed to vocal lessons because I feel like you're always evolving. You've never arrived. There's always room for improvement. So any chance I get, I want to connect with people who can expand on my gifts.
During your high school career, though, was music your primary go? That was music was that, huh?
Yes, I've been in choir in school ever since I can remember, since like second grade when they opened the choir to kids at our school. So that was another way of how I learned harmonies and knowing, okay, the soprano does this, the alto, the tenor. I was already well versed with that because I've been in choir ever since I was like 7, 8 years old. And each year, even in high school, I was in the treble choir. And then senior year, I was in varsity choir, which both of those you have to try out for. So they only pick the best of the best vocally to be a part of those choirs. And when I went to DePaul, I joined the DePaul Gospel Choir. And that at the time was directed by Keisha McFarland. And she gave me opportunities to lead songs, and I just grew there as well musically.
You know, we didn't mention there's another talent you have is writing poetry too, but I guess the rest goes writing with writing. But how did poetry become vocal?
So when I was 11, I would write, you know, poetry, and it was the typical like roses are red, violets are blue.
Okay.
You know, little kiddie stuff. And then eventually I came across these Christian spoken word poets on YouTube, and they have a ministry where every year they tour around the country and they do Christian spoken word. And I was like, I feel like I can do this. So when I was about 16 or 17 years old, I wrote my first spoken word piece, and I said it in front of my dad, and he's like, you're really good. You could be up there with these poets, you know. And so recently I actually went to an event. It's called the Poets in Autumn Tour. And I met these poets personally. I took pictures with them, and I gave them my album. And so that's something that I love doing as well, just as much as singing. I love spoken word and the power of words, and how you can literally speak something into existence and encourage people through words. So,
I know your dad is very proud of you, and any dad would be, because you are not only interested in yourself. You mentioned about emptying yourself to serve God, but transforming other lives for the glory of God. That's you don't find too many people, and that's maybe through his encouragement, or you have found how necessary it is to transform other lives for the grace of God.
Yes, well, I look at the example of Christ and how he came to serve, even though he's Lord. And so my goal is to serve others as well, be a servant and help others. So he's really my example of why it's important to empty yourself and help others, transforming lives for his glory.
And that's what it's all about too.
Amen.
Because I mentioned before that it's not about us. It's about serving.
Yes.
Serving God. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yes. Now you have other siblings.
Yes, I have 2 older brothers, Larnell and Aaron.
Okay.
Yes, love them.
Musically inclined?
No. My brother Aaron can sing a little bit.
We all have our own talents.
Yes.
So forth, you know. Yeah. Okay. I have really enjoyed having you sharing your musical talents with us. Of course, your dad had told me about you and so forth, and so I knew you before I met you, you know, and this type of thing. So what are some of the things you may share with us that we have not covered about your musical career?
I think we've pretty much touched on everything as far as the production and the writing. Harmonies, we haven't touched on. I love vocal harmonies. I purposefully create beats that highlight my vocal ability. So I try not to make the sounds too busy so that it'll compete with my voice. So I don't like too much going on. I don't want the guitar doing all these riffs and runs, then I can't vocally do, because your voice is an instrument too. So I hear harmonies in my head, and I try to come up with harmonies that are not typical. I want the listener to kind of twitch and go like, did she just do that? I want them to really hear the different sounds that you can create with the voice. And so harmonies are definitely something that I love to do and vocal produce and things of that nature.
Well, we want to mention just one other time, how can our listening audience connect with you and purchase your music?
Yes. So
different avenues now.
Yes. I have a Facebook artist page, and that's facebook.com/RachelYvonne93. And then my official website is www.RachelYvonnemusic.com. And you can directly access my album there and download it from there as well. And then if you have iTunes or Spotify, Google Play, you can also download my album from those platforms as well.
You mentioned it took approximately 6 months to produce your first album,
Yes.
Was this, you was concentrating on it, or was it, during your spare time?
I planned it. I was concentrating, very focused, because that was one of my goals that I had written down for the year.
Yeah.
So I was kind of challenging myself to see if I could meet this goal at a specific time, because I knew that I wanted to release it on my birthday. So I had started in December of 2016, just learning the software, and then by January I was already recording. So I knew what I wanted to do, and I had that goal in mind, and I just was very focused.
Yeah, I mentioned that because you touched on it. Maybe you want to touch on it some more. The writing and release process.
Yes. That was a process. Because, like I had stated, I'd never produced myself.
Right.
I've always been around producers, so just learning the software was tedious, but it was fulfilling because I knew I didn't have to depend on someone else to do it. So once I got that down, I was like, I can do anything. It's just a matter of what I want to talk about and what I want to write about. And so 6 months later, I was able to release 14 tracks, 2 spoken words on it. And I'm also currently working on my second album now.
Yes, that's my next question. Now, when you think it take you just as long to complete your second album?
So with this one, I kind of took my time a little bit more. I wanted to develop more of a sound because I think I was just all over the place with this last album, just because I wanted to see what I was capable of. But for this second album, I've narrowed in on a sound that I wanted, and I cannot wait to share this album with the world. I think it's better just content-wise, and musically, I've grown since the last album. So people can probably expect this one January of 2019. I'm going to say that confidently because I'm almost done. I'm almost done with the album now.
Now, are you doing this all alone, or do you have someone working with you? You mentioned Cornell Ford. He's been on this program before too.
Awesome.
Cornell, and I know the other musician you mentioned.
Yes,
he plays
Trinell.
He plays with First Corinthian Church, and but do you doing all this yourself, or you have someone working with you?
So for my first album, I did it all myself, and I asked my dad, because he plays bass, if he could accompany me on 2 songs on the album, and he delivered, as I knew he would. And so for this second album, I'm doing it all myself. I don't have any features with any other artists or musicians. I really just want to show the world that I'm capable of doing this all myself, with God's guidance, of course. And so, everything is all done by me.
Yeah, and what makes it so great is that you're writing based on your personal life experiences too, right?
Yes, because I feel like people will be more receptive to hearing what I have to say, And also, the experiences and relationships that I have with other people inspire my writing too. I may write about something that I haven't necessarily gone through, but I can translate what they may have been through and be able to relate to a specific group of people based off of their experiences too. I have the gift of writing what other people have gone through as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you involved in, well, I mentioned about leisure time activities and so forth, but community activities, because if are you involved in, because I could probably answer that myself. It doesn't seem like you have time. Community activities.
You said it. I don't have the time right now, but I would love to be. You know, my goal is to work with the youth specifically, so teenagers, at-risk youth, specifically young girls, just encouraging them to know their worth and not trying to find their identity in a young man, but in Christ. So those are some of the things that I wish to be doing community-wise when I get the time.
Why is there so much problem with our youth?
They have.
I mean, you had the initiative, you had the drive, you're inspired and so forth.
Yes.
Even though your mother was not the primary influence in your life, you know, because of divorce and so forth.
Yes.
I think that's fantastic. But what about the problem with youth?
Well, although my parents divorced, they were still very active in my life. They co-parented very well. I'm very close with my mom.
Fantastic.
And so she modeled the life of a godly woman before me, which is why I am the way that I am. But I think the problem with our youth today is I don't think they have a sense of guidance. I don't think they have someone that they can look up to and aspire to be like. A lot of times we are a product of our environment. And so if you don't see anyone around you flourishing or doing something that you want to do, you tend to get discouraged and think, well, this is all life has to offer, and so you fall into the downward spiral of what's happening. Instead of seeing someone who has made it, you know, I want to be that person someone looks up to and says, she made it, you know. And so I think that's the problem. They don't have anyone to look up to.
Well, you sure have someone to look up to, and basically God is the answer too.
Yes,
but we have the youth are falling away from the church. Why?
I think the church needs to be more loving. I think we forget where we came from. And so it's easy for us to point out someone's sin instead of extend a hand in love and say, hey, I've been where you are, you know, but there's a different approach, there's a different route. And a lot of times I think the church is just very judgmental and religious, and I think they can have that Pharisee mentality instead of coming to those in love as Christ did. We have to spread forth love. Like, that's the motivation for it all. That's the motivation for the gospel, love. So the church, once they start showing love more, I think youth will be more receptive to coming to church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that advice. Great advice. You know, we have to love ourselves before we can love others. All right.
Yeah, because you can't give what you don't have. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to love yourself in order to love other people. You are to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself.
And a great thing about music, as you mentioned, is the ability to change the way you think.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Amazing for music to be able to. There's something about music, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
It's from the beginning of time. The harp was used, you know, it
Right.
kind of works on the mind and this type of thing.
Yes.
And so you have found that to be you truly believe that, right?
Yes, I do. I think even going back to the youth, a lot of the music that they have out now is just, it's terrible, honestly, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
And I think so they're listening to these artists that's glorifying sex and drugs and money, and that's literally changing the way they think, how they see the world, and they pursue after those things. But when you talk about things of substance, you know, like overcoming those addictions and seeking God, and
Fantastic.
when you can feed their minds through the music that you create like that, it changes their perspective of the world around them.
It's I think you put it well then. That's fantastic. Because the way you think, and if they're thinking of what they're hearing, then it's not gonna get better, it's gonna get worse.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you mentioned that music is a reflection of your life experiences. This is what what percentage of women versus men musicians, you know?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Is women outnumber the man? And
I don't think so. I think it's pretty equal. I haven't really thought about it like that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of the things that I do love, and I forgot to mention, is I love doing music videos. So not only have I edited and everything that you see on my website I created, I also like to direct and edit my videos. And my dad, he's a graphic artist and a photographer and things of that nature. So we work really well together. And I have 3 music videos out. The first one was filmed by Cornell Ford, and he edited that. That was Dear Future Husband. My second one was Unashamed, as I talked to you about, and my father filmed it, and I did all the editing for that music video. And my last music video is My Heart Belongs to You, which is a love song to God. And my dad also filmed it, and I edited it. So all those music videos can be found on my website and also on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/RachelYvonne93. So I really want people to see visually what I express musically, and you know what they're listening to. I want them to be able to visually see that as well through my music videos.
You mentioned it several times, and I know it has a great influence on you, that your musical influences have been your father, didn't they?
Yeah, with my dad, he exposed me to a lot of different types of styles of music. With my mom, it was very much gospel, and I'm very thankful for that. But I think I became a little bit more versatile in my music style when I started listening to things that my dad would bring me. So I listened to everything, and I don't think that music is innately bad, because everything comes from God. It's just what you talk about and the message behind it. So my dad has definitely greatly influenced me, as well as my mother.
Great. Fantastic. Kudos, good kudos.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked about the musical instruments. You mentioned about the bass, piano.
Yes.
And the other you could hear and transform in play then, right?
Yeah, in the production software that I use, I have a MIDI keyboard, and it comes with like a cord that you can connect to your computer. And when I pull up the software, I have options of different sounds that I want to play. And if I'm feeling like, okay, I want to hear a trumpet, I can pull up the trumpet sound, and I hear it in my head. So if I want the trumpet to go burr, 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 I can find that on the piano and say burr, 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 and then place that and program that and build off of that. So I love having that option.
Well, we come to the point now. Is what did the flower tell the bee?
What did the flower tell the bee?
Buzz off.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting ready to buzz off now.
Okay.
And this has been a great experience for me, and I am learning, have learned right along with my audience. By the way, the audience is about 100,000 people in the Comcast family.
Awesome.
And it airs, if I can get a commercial in, it airs at 7 p.m. every Thursday evening on Channel 17. Now, other cities have to check their stations, but it's a community forum. And in addition, it will air online, so it'll be all over the world. The message that you have given, and no other person could give it because it's based on your life experience, and this is what makes it so great, and really appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Rachel Yvonne.
Yes.
And we have introduced her to you, and I'm sure it's been exciting. She's a singer, a songwriter, producer, and a poet, right from our own county, Waukegan, Illinois. And she's been sharing her life experiences, and hopefully that it will encourage others to get involved with music, because they may even become a singer, songwriter, producer, and poet.
Yes.
My three youngsters are all involved in music, and the wife and I can't hit a note. So I don't know where they got it from, but it's innately, I guess, because my son plays by ear too, I guess, and so forth. So it's a God-given talent.
Yes, it is.
This has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.